Hello, everybody, and welcome into another special edition of Texas Longhorns Live at the Voice of College Football. We are going to be looking at the Texas Longhorns 2025 schedule, my way too early predictions on what their record is going to be after an 11-1 regular season. Can they do that for next year? In 3, 2, 1. Okay, so Texas starts out in Columbus with a rematch of the team they lost to in the semifinal of the college football playoff. You play the national championship team back-to-back years. You played Michigan on the road last year. You play Ohio State on the road this year. Ohio State losing a lot on defense. I believe they're only going to have at best 2 or 3 returning starters, with the possibility if everyone leaves other than Caleb Downs, he could be the only one left. You obviously have Jeremiah Smith returning. Carnell Tate, I think, is going to stay. Brandon Ennis, some guys at the wide receiver position. And then you have mostly new guys at the offensive line, couple starters. I believe Montgomery at the guard position is going to stay. Whole new backfield. I think Texas easily wins this football game. I said this after we played Ohio State. I moved on quickly to this game. I think Texas wins this football game rather easily. I think with Arch Manning coming in, we know who the quarterback is going to be. That is the biggest position on the football field, period. I have no idea who the quarterback is going to be for Ohio State. It is going to be Julian Sayin. And listen, Julian Sayin's a highly recruited kid. The problem that I have is when I hear that, he was the third stringer the whole year behind Devin Brown. I've seen Devin Brown play. Devin Brown is not that good of a football player, and he transfers to Cal, and you couldn't beat him out for the backup job? That says a lot to me. So to me, I think Texas, especially with 7 or 8 returning defensive players as well, and you have 2. Now, listen, you have 1 returning offensive lineman in Devon Campbell, but you really have 2. Cole Hudson played a lot of the year last year, rotating with Devon Campbell. So you're going to either have both of your guards back or a guard and a center back. So 2/5 of your offensive line returning, or 2/6, I guess, because they did basically have 6 starters. And then you have good wide receiver room still. I think Texas wins this game. I'll give you even a score prediction for this game since it's a big game. And I'll throw out score predictions for all the big games. How about that? I'm going to go Texas 31, Ohio State 20. And I think that's a really big win. And I think right now with the early line, Texas is getting 4.5 points. I'm already laying money with that. I put a decent amount of change on that. I think Texas covers. And if they gave me a money line, I would definitely bet on that too. So we're going to go through these games quickly. San Jose State's going to be a win. UTEP is going to be a win. Then you get the off week. I would have liked the off week about a week later after this game. Sam Houston Bearcats. Texas wins this football game as well. So they are 4-0 heading into Gainesville, Florida, probably the number 1 team in the country as we sit. If Florida takes care of business with their schedule early, we're probably talking about a top 10 matchup, maybe even a top 5 matchup, because that's how good I think this Florida team can be. I have a tweet after I watched DJ Lagway versus LSU saying he's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft when he decides to come out. That is how talented that young man is. They have some good weapons around him. I believe Eugene Wilson is back. Montrell Johnson is back. A couple other players on the offensive side of the ball, so they're really talented. Their issue was the defensive side of the ball. They were abysmal. I think they were the 2nd worst defense in the SEC. Only Mississippi State was worse, and they have talent. So can they become an average defense? If they become an average defense, they could 100% beat Texas in this game. There's no doubt about that. I really believe they could. And you're going to have to lose some games if you're Texas. I don't see Texas running through this schedule 12-0. I'm going to put my faith here. And the only reason I'm not saying Florida for sure wins this game as of this moment is the guy that stands on the sideline. I'm higher on Billy Napier than everyone was at the beginning of the season. But I'm not high on him to where I think he's a top 10, 15 coach in the country. I think he's an average football coach. I think Sark is a top 5 football coach in the country. So you're talking about a top 5 football coach versus an average coach. That gives me the hesitation, but I'm still going to pull the trigger. As of this moment, I'm picking the Florida Gators to beat the Texas Longhorns. So that puts Texas at 4-1. Heading into the Red River rivalry in Dallas. Texas, 2 out of the last 3 years, has prevented Oklahoma from scoring any offensive touchdowns. The other game that they won was a 34-31 classic. Fantastic football game. And Texas, unfortunately, ran out of time in that game. I think Oklahoma is going to be slightly worse on defense or about the same. They do return a lot. They're going to be pretty damn good on defense still, and that was the strength last year. My issue with Oklahoma is the offense. It's going to be a lot of new offensive linemen still, a new quarterback, a new scheme presented to everyone. The quarterback's familiar with the scheme, but a new scheme presented to everyone, and you lost like your 6 best wide receivers basically other than Deion Burks. So how does this team play? I don't know. I think Texas has more talent. This game's going to be somewhat close just because guess what? Oklahoma has a quarterback this time. Michael Hawkins was a joke last year. Their fans pumped him up to be something he was never going to be. I think Texas wins this game still. I think they win probably like 33-27 or something of that nature. Oklahoma's going to be a better football team. I think they'll be a 7-5, 8-4 football team this year. I don't think they'll be that much better. Their offense is still a work in progress. Until you prove it to me, I can't predict you to win this game, Oklahoma. We go on the road to Lexington, Kentucky, a team that I thought was going to be good last year. They were not. They were not a good football team at all. I think Mark Stoops, there's a real chance around this time he could be fired at this point. I think Texas wins this game. I think Kentucky's headed in the complete wrong direction. And like I said, if Kentucky starts out really bad and it was like 2-4 or something like that at this point, he could be fired. So I think Texas easily wins this game. I don't even know who Kentucky's quarterback's going to be. I don't know how many offensive weapons they have. They lost a lot. Barry and Brown, Danke, both transferred out. Their defense is losing a lot to the NFL. How do you replenish that? I just don't see it here. So I think Texas easily wins this football game. Then they go on the road and listen to those obnoxious cowbells for the first time in Starkville, Mississippi. I was not a big fan of the hire of Jeff Lebby. I think he's a decent offensive coordinator. I never thought he would be a good head coach. I said that as soon as he got picked up there by Mississippi State. You lose Blake Shapen. You lose Michael Van Buren. I just don't know about this team. I just don't know. I don't know anything positive. You lose Mario Craver, you lose Kevin Coleman. Like, is there anything on this team where I look at and like, man, that, you know what, that's good. Offensive line, no. Quarterback, no. Wide receivers, no. Defense, no. I'm questionable of your head coach. Now, I think Texas rolls here like 45-20. I don't think this is close at all. Next up, you get a pretty decent opponent in Vanderbilt who had a good season this year. I do think they come back down to earth because their offense was a mismatch every week because no one knew what they were preparing for. It was a triple option offense. That is on tape now. There will be no surprising teams. There's no surprising teams with Diego Pavia in the offensive run and with Eli Stowers coming back. They're going to be a decent football team, but I think Texas wins this game. I think Vanderbilt does take a step back overall, and that puts Texas with only one loss heading into their second bye week, which is always nice to have. And guess what? We get it right before the Georgia Bulldogs. I cannot predict Texas to win this football game in good faith. I have yet to see Texas beat Georgia, even though I thought the second game they were the better team and played well enough to win that football game. Played a dominant half and only ended up at the half 6-3. So for Arch Manning to go in here in his, third or fourth road start and win this football game, I just don't see it at this point. I don't see it. Do I think Texas has the talent to beat Georgia? Yes. Does Georgia lose a lot off defense? Yes, but they also reload. Just like Ohio State, they're going to reload. Now, do I think Texas has more proven talent on both sides of the ball than Georgia will have at this point this year or going into next year? Yes, I do. I do believe that. But they're 0-2. I can't do it. So I'm going to take Georgia to win this game. I think it's a really good football game. I think it's like 27-24. I think Gunnar Stockton, the boys get it done. I think he's being hated on too much too. I was actually very impressed with him in the playoff game, and I thought he was pretty poised for the most part coming in the second half for his first real big-time action. They need to find some wide receivers that can catch the football, but I think the defense will be good. I don't know if it would be great. I'm not going to say that because you had a lot of talent last year and it wasn't great. It was good, but it was not great. So can they take it up to that other level that they had a couple years ago of great? We will see. Let me say this. If Georgia stays the exact same as they were last year and Texas gets a little bit better, I think Texas wins this football game. But I expect Georgia to get better, and I expect Texas to stay the same or get better. So when they're on an even playing field, I'm going to take Georgia because I've yet to see Texas beat teams that are slightly better than them. We saw that with Georgia, and we saw that with Ohio State, and that's why they lost because those teams were slightly better, and Texas wasn't able to overcome that. Next up, we're going to go with the Arkansas Razorbacks. They lose a lot. Is this Sam Pittman's last chance here for the Arkansas Razorbacks? I don't think they win this football game. Taylor Green is coming back, and I think he's a good player. But you lose Jaquinton Jackson. Your wide receivers, I believe Armstrong is gone. Defensively, you lose a lot of your key pieces, including Brad Spence, who comes to Texas. So I think Texas wins this football game as well. I don't think it's really that close, honestly. This is the first time Arkansas has come to Texas in a very long time, by the way. Both the last two times we've gone to Pig Woo Pig Suey down there in Fayetteville. So I think Texas fans are fired up for this game. I think they win this game, and I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch, but I think Texas wins. And for the first time in a long time, Texas A&M comes to Austin. You're coming there with Marcel Reed. You're coming there with Kevin Concepcion. You're coming there with maybe Micah Hudson. We'll see how that goes. You're coming there with Amari Niblack, the transfer from Texas. You're coming there with a lot of new faces on the defensive side of the ball because a lot of your faces went to the NFL. That's my question, actually. I think A&M's offense is going to take a pretty big step here. I like Marcel Reed. I think their defense is going to be about the same or even worse than they were last year. So I think Texas handles this game rather easily, too. They handled the game down in A&M rather easily. They just tried to piss it away at the end. So I think Texas wins that game. I think Texas ends up going 10-2, which is one game worse than last year. The over-under right now, as of January 22nd at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, is 9.5. So I'm taking the Texas Longhorns to go over for next season, go 10-2 with losses at Georgia and losses at Florida. I want your comments, your questions. What is your record prediction for the Texas Longhorns? And join us every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I really appreciate you guys being here for this way too early 2025 prediction, and hook 'em.